Good day, everybody. My name is Vincent, and I'm the writer of Real Life Business Technology on Web Novel. And I'm here to discuss some of the comments that my readers have left on the novel, the past few chapters. Let's start with a suggestion by Captain Yum Yum. Thank you for commenting this. You asked about hive mind manufacturing. It was kind of vague in the earlier chapters. So, based on how I remember things in the story, the hive mind manufacturing suite was one of the first kind of power fantasy elements that I added to the early chapters, and it was the idea of investing in AI and production, because my character Vince Dalton, and personally, I feel that production is important to any economy, any society, and it's wrong to rely on the banks and Wall Street to determine what your value is. You have to make your own stuff, pretty much, and this is where the Made in America kind of concept came about, for future tech. And they started with hive mind manufacturing, and they did this to manufacture the Bitcash wallets, if I can recall correctly. And it was very small. They didn't require a huge AI driven manufacturing pipelines like the one in the top right corner right there. But eventually, that's how the hive mind manufacturing drones progressed. They became bigger, they became better, to produce whatever future tech wanted to sell, instead of relying on third parties to produce their new product lines, and such as the Aerodyne vehicles towards the later chapters, or in the earlier chapters, like the first computers and the first product line that they came out to compete with Apple and the like. That's where manufacturing drones came in. And because some of them could fly, like the one on the bottom right picture right there, they'll be able to you manufacture and be more flexible with manufacturing with the drones that are flight capable. But that's most of the hive mind manufacturing are stationary, like the ones in the top right corner right there, and they're assisted by 3D printers. So the 3D printers and the hive mind manufacturing suite as a system is drones, AI driven 3D printing. That's it. So if we need to print something large, like the AVs, we would use something the size on the right, AI driven production suite, 3D printing using raw materials, and the smaller drones just put it together, and it's all automated, no labor required, like the typical labor that you would normally see in factories like this. And if it's small, like a nano computer chip, whatever, we go to the smaller ones on the left hand side. Still AI driven, still automated. It's just smaller, and just put these items together to make the product. And that's the whole kind of like hive mind suite. It's all these different ways of manufacturing that's all connected to each other, and they know what they're doing, and it's efficient that way. And it's one of the first power fantasy elements that kind of propel the company to greater heights, even though it's a very young company. But that's what the future knowledge is for, taking advantage of future more modern techniques such as AI manufacturing. Next up, okay. Right, let's move on to the future tech collaborations. Suggested by Asforest on chapter 79, he asked to compare the collaborative companies from what they are in the novel versus what they are in reality. So let's start with SpaceX and Tesla, which was very integral to the story until now. So that's the main reason why Elon approached Vince Dalton in the LA Grand Finals of the APL was because of AI manufacturing, for the most part, what we talked about earlier, and AI technology in general. Because he was looking for the best AI company in the world to collaborate with on his vertical landing space rocket system, and they couldn't get it to work. And in 2013, in reality, they haven't made it work yet. They only did it a few years later. And through his research and finding out that, you know, this up and coming future tech company employed the best AI specialists in the world, because that's where Vince Dalton dumped most of his money on, is betting on production. So he approached him to ask, hey, can we use your AI technology in our rockets? And this was a big opportunity for Vince to get into the space and aeronautics industry, and pretty much repels even his AI drones. You know, like after their collaboration with Koenigsegg, which we'll talk about later, they get more types of vehicles because of their collaborations. I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, we can move on to. Well, oh yeah, and the batteries. One of the biggest collaborations is about the batteries and the technology behind renewable energy, and this is tested at Kandahar. If you've gone through the free chapters, you should know that that's where most of the testing is going for SpaceX biospheres and the solar arrays, the concentrator photovoltaic solar arrays in for renewable energy. And this is big because the manufacturing capabilities of the Hive Mind drones is getting better and better gradually. That, you know, things that weren't possible before to produce were becoming more and more economical to produce. Like, it's not just for like labs or experiments where these items are produced, like graphene and stuff like this. Eventually, the Hive Mind manufacturing process becomes so refined that, you know, now we can invent better batteries that use, you know, more exotic types of materials and things like this. And this is where the science power fantasy goes into play, where we don't really know what's going on with the, you know, like the metal matrix composites or whatever, but that only became a thing because of the investments that both Elon Musk and his partners like Vince Dalton and everybody has provided to the AI manufacturing drones. The most important asset of future tech, in my opinion, as the writer. All right, and let's move on to Koenigsegg. So Koenigsegg, I have massive respect for Christian von Koenigsegg. He's a genius, and I love his cars. His cars are beautiful. Look at that car, man. It's so beautiful. But he gets in business with future tech because of AI as well. He wanted to produce his cars much more economically. He had better foresight than Elon Musk did. Elon didn't even think about producing his Tesla cars. He just thought about the space rocket landing system, wherein Christian von Koenigsegg wanted to produce his cars more economically, right? Other than that, he pioneered a technology in 2016 called free valve systems for their engines. And what it does is it's AI driven air intake. I think that's what it does. And nowadays it's very common to see fuel injectors in your car, and this is the same exact system. You know, like computerized and everything like that, and it's all like in a freaking tuner computer or whatever in your car. But now he's doing it for the air valves, and that's why it's called free valves, because you don't really need to do all of the unnecessary parts. You can remove, because it's the AI that controls the valves now. It doesn't have to be mechanical. It's all electronic. And as a result, the engines become smaller and smaller and smaller until you can have powerful aerodyne jet engines that are this small, and a dragonfly drone can fly super fast, even with heavy armaments on, super heavy. It can still fly like a regular drone that you would see in modern times, like the DJI drones and stuff like that. But they literally has machine guns because of the advancements that he's done with future tech with his engines. Compared to now, in reality, he had to make his own company, invest in his own AI specialists, AI engineers, and he spent all this money to, finally be able to put it in his newest car, one of his newest cars, the Gamera. And it took him years to do it. But in the books, in my novel, it only took him half a year to do it, because of the power fantasy element in that sense. I love him, his cars. He seems like a great dude. I want to drive one of his cars one day. And that brings us to Epic Games, the first collaboration. Like after Flappy Bird or Wingin' Chicken, because it's a great. I don't know. I kind of pat myself in the back for the Wingin' Chicken title, but the Flappy Bird game was successful almost overnight, kind of similar to the original game, but the original game wasn't really successful that fast. It took around a few months before it really popped off and became viral. But in the story, in this game, and in this novel, the game became popular super fast. And this is what started the talks between the different game companies. They're like, why are we spending so much money in making these AAA games? But, this small game can make more money than us. Then they're like realizing mobile games is the most profitable avenue for video games, which is true until now. In 2022, definitely mobile games rake the most money, which is why Future Tech or Future Studios focus on cross-platform, because they want the mobile market to be part of their consumer base. So it's very important. And Epic Games was one of the first very important collaborators with Future Tech. They're the ones that provided most of the expertise, how Kyle and the gang learned how to produce video games from the ground up. No university education would have been better than learning from the guys that actually make game engines to make video games. And Jessica, unlike Jessica, the other three worked closely with Epic Games, but Jessica preferred to work with Patel and the software and AI departments instead. So she worked on the operating systems with the computational linguistics team with Patel and those other guys. But for the other three friends, and even the main character, Vince Dalton, it was super important to have the support of Epic Games for War Online specifically, because they didn't know how to make an online game. Online game is super difficult to make, and Vince Dalton, the main character, doesn't know everything. So he had to spend the big bucks to get the professionals to help them out, and they kind of, they get better together through the AI technology that Future Tech supported Epic Games with. And through advancing technology in that sense, they were able to make their engine better. So the physics simulation became better. How the AI renderer is able to handle so many polygons in one scene, and all of these things evolved Epic Games and kind of becomes the linchpin of future studios. That future studios can only be here because of Epic Games. Vince Sutton could have made it without his friends, but because they spent so much time and effort into learning from Tim Sweeney in Epic Games, they can hold their own in the video game industry, and then the main character won't have to worry about his video game department much anymore. Yeah, thank you for watching the new video. I'm planning on doing more of these about your comments, and I take your suggestions into account, even if I don't agree. I do still think about the few suggestions here and there that resonate with me, and I hope I can make the novel better for you guys.